I'm not sure what the favorite flavor is, but they work hard to find it. Well, Jesus is heading up to Jerusalem. Jesus was a popular teacher and someone who stood in opposition to some of the leaders. And of course, the leaders are in Jerusalem. It's the capital city, the seat of power. And so the people following him, you might have heard, they're afraid of going up there because this could turn out badly for him. And Jesus does nothing to dispel that. In fact, he says, no, I'm telling you yet this third time, 3 times he tells them, I'm going up there, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to die, and on the third day be raised. That has been a hard message for them to absorb and even kind of have a sense of what is he getting at? Why is it this way? They're not tracking very well. And you can see that by James and John's response. For James and John say, hey, pull them aside, say, Jesus, how about if you let one of us serve at your left hand and the other one at your right hand, or your right hand and then your left hand, whatever. But basically, they're looking for power. They want to be his top lieutenants. When he comes in his glory, when he's sitting on his throne in his kingdom, they want to be the top next 2 guys. It's about power, as I've said. So anyway, well, Jesus, really surprised by, like, well, no, and has a little conversation with them. And the other disciples hear about it, and they're angry. And they're not angry because they got Jesus' teaching all messed up. No, they're angry because they, were trying to put themselves above them. They were trying to be more than they were, and they resented that whole move to get up there. So Jesus pulls them aside yet again and explains how this Christian life, this life he offers them, goes. He says, you know what it's like among the Gentiles, the people without God in their lives. You know what it's like among them. They're worried about power. They lord it over each other. In fact, their great ones are tyrants over each other. It's all about that. He said it's not supposed to be that way among you. For the greatest among you, or the great ones among you, are to be servants. It's a shocker, huh? And the greatest one among you is to be the servant of all. A real reverse in this world's value, just throwing them up on the head. Well, we as a church have always valued service. It's been from our beginnings that we'd be a church that serves in this world, and particularly through our social outreach things. And we've worked at that. Just a week ago, we finished hosting families in our church for 2 weeks. Not only did we give them a place to stay who might otherwise be on the streets or homeless, but we fed them and we were there for them and talking with them. We walked alongside them. Great ministry. And now we're inviting you to jump in another one about coming up with some money to give goats across this world, that families would have sustainable sources of food through these goats. A service. And I know there's all kinds of other ways to serve in leadership, serve up at the altar, and you serve in your own lives in all kinds of ways. Well, Jesus doesn't necessarily say, or doesn't straight out say the word call to serve here, though. He says the great ones are servants. And there's a difference in there somewhere. I think most of us, when we think of serving, we think of something we choose to do. I can say, go choose, on such and such a day to go down and help out here and serve a little bit. It's at my discretion. It's my choice. Now move that to servants. Well, the servants at the bid and the command of the master. They don't get to choose anything. If it's convenient or not convenient, if it's hard or easy, if they feel like it or not, they have to do what their master says. That's what it means to be a servant. So Jesus is, I think, raising the bar here and asking his disciples not just to serve, but to think of themselves as servants in the world. That God would have them be servants to other people in his ways, in the love that he's showing to the world. Well, today, as we all know, that the headlines are all about the coronavirus. It's all over the place. The tallies of numbers of how many people are sick here and how many sick there, what's going on in stores, what's happening on cruise ships and so forth, and all this information on the coronavirus. And for me, the way I want to kind of frame it for you today is to imagine it kind of like a dark bank of clouds across the Front Range. So you're out there, it's 2 o'clock in a summer afternoon, and you see that dark bank of clouds over there. Now you know something. Weather comes from the west. And that something's coming our way. Likely. Sometimes it goes away, but it's a pretty good chance that that dark bank of clouds is going to come on down, and we're at least going to get some rain, not some wind. And maybe it'll be a hard rain, and it could really make a mess of things, and hail, and ruin some stuff. I've all had hail-damaged cars. Expensive thing. So anyway, but something's coming. But we don't know exactly when it's going to get here, how long it will last. We don't know a lot of things about it. And I think the coronavirus is like that. It's like this dark cloud over there, and it's kind of coming our way, and we're not sure exactly when it'll really impact us or how much of a mess it'll make of things, but it's probably coming. So it leaves us in what I think can best frame as uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty around this thing. And uncertainty tends to make us anxious, fearful. And that fear is a very powerful thing. You see it already breaking out across our nation. I mean, they're buying up all the hand sanitizers, masks, and toilet paper. I've been a pastor a long time, and toilet paper is now a sermon topic. But I still remember the picture of this guy. He had 2 of these huge packs of toilet paper stacked up on his cart. It's about this high, like a little iceberg going right up there to the checkout. You're going, how long would that ever take to go through all? I have no idea. But it's a fear thing. And I pick it up. I absorb it. Fear is a funny thing. It's powerful in that it transmits so quickly and easily. And the other thing that makes it powerful, it fogs our brains, I think. It tends to get us reacting. It tends to check our thinking out and get us reacting. So I'm thinking, well, do I need to stock up on stuff? I don't think I'd get that much toilet paper, but maybe I need more food. Maybe I need to get this or that. You can just feel it kind of suck into you, and your brain's starting to work on, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? That's that reactive part of our souls, our brains, about this fear thing going on. I don't think God wants us to go there. In fact, I'm sure of it. You can see from his teachings today, he's already said to his disciples, I don't want you to be like the Gentile people, those without God. In terms of power is what he's talking about there. All lording power over people, wanting all this power. So I don't want you to be like those people. And I think we can expand that today to say, I don't want you to be like those people around fear. To get lost and to get caught up in fear. I don't think he wants us there. Instead, I think we can still run to this fact that he wants us, calls us to serve, and even if we dare think of it, be servants. Servants for his cause in the world. A cause that we have through faith to love this world. That God wants us to do that. Keep our heads clear. And not respond in fear. Because that's a lot of the issues we're going to have isn't from the virus. It's going to be from the fears, isn't it? There is something definitely out there. But how are we going to live in that time? So I want to throw out a few things for you. As Judy already told us in her temple talk at the beginning, that we do not want to make things worse. Step 1. Let's not be that church that makes things worse. And of course, those hygiene practices of hand washing and sanitizers and, keeping, touch surfaces clean and just taking the steps we know not to cough and to back off if we're feeling sick. Those kinds of things, those extra precautions in this time frame. They're not bad precautions anytime. But I'm just in this time frame in particular, let's not make it worse by poor health practices around hygiene and that sort of thing. Step 1. But that's not what Jesus for. Well, let's not make things worse. I don't think he came to just not make things worse in the world. He came to make things better. And that's where this servant thing comes back into us. What does it look like for us in a time where there's a lot of fear floating around to be serving God? What does that mean for you and me? And I'll just give you a little bits of my first thoughts on that. One is we say here at Ascension, in God's grace, our mission statement, in God's grace, Ascension creates faithful community. Community is about relationships. And the thing I see when people are afraid is they tend to draw back. When the storm's coming, they hunker down, batten down the hatches, and pull in. That I think it's a good time for us to do just the opposite, and that is reach out. In fact, I want you to think of one person, and maybe a person in particular, who tends to pull out, who tends to back off and get some distance. That person in particular, or some people like, you can do more than one, please, and contact them. Reach out to them. Check in with how they're doing. See what's going on in their life. Care for them. Be that person who creates community. Reach out to them. So let's imagine it's John. Hey, John, I'm calling him on the phone. Buzz, ring, ring, ring. Okay. Hey, John, how are you doing? And of course, John's always going to say what? He's an American. Fine, which is nothing. We say that if we're dying. How are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, you're going to die in 2 hours. But you're fine. Okay. But anyway, so we always say I'm fine. So you got to get past that. Well, what's going on? Hey, what are you doing? What's keeping you busy? It's just something to get them talking some more. So you always have to have the follow-up question ready to go. And they'll start telling you about that. And you can say, hey, well, it sounds like you're really struggling with that, acknowledging something. But it's about creating community, checking in. And if they really have a need, they could share it with you at that point. And there's something maybe you need to think about doing to help them. Coronavirus isn't here yet, but maybe it can be an excuse for us to deepen community regardless. Something we should have maybe done before anyway. But the reason it's really and particularly important now, because if this thing really does land hard and mess things up, we're all going to be hunkering down a whole lot more, aren't we? They could shut us down here. It's happened other times and in other places. And that we don't have that communal life we used to have. And if we've already done some efforts to make contacts, we have something to build on that's not fresh out of the, oh yeah, well, here's what's going on. But we've already made those relationships. And we can be there for each other as community that God calls us to be. So your challenge this week is to find someone who you don't normally contact, who's kind of been off your radar screen, who might be a good person for you to call. Think of the name right now. Who's it going to be? Who are you going to reach out to this week and make that contact? One of the things we have talked about a lot lately is, of course, our mission statement. And the year or so it took to get us to come up with that mission statement, we also came up with something we call our vision statement. And we haven't used it much because we felt like it was enough just to work on our mission statement. But I'm going to throw it out there again for you. So here's what we came up with the vision statement. He says, transformed by God's grace, Ascension shines God's light into the darkness. How did we do that? Well, there's a darkness first coming around coronavirus, particularly the fear around coronavirus. There's a lot of anxiety and nervousness around. So we have this fear of coronavirus thing going on, and that's kind of a darkness. Well, we're not that. I think light is we serve other people by keeping contact, by caring for them, where they're at, what's going on for their life, by making the contacts, initiating those things, being out front. And to me, there's a light that goes with that. A light that shines all the brighter against the darkness. Remember, Jesus didn't want his disciples to be like all those other people. He wanted them to step up and be a different kind of people. And that shows up when we serve other people. Even, dare you consider, be a servant of those other people for God's sake, for love's sake in this world. Amen.